Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Purposeful Conversations with me, Emmy, here in the PAMI Code Facebook community. Now, as we are entering, I think probably the second month of lockdown, I know that there are some members in our community who are parents and who have been homeschooling their kids for the past couple of months, in quarantine, just managing the home, managing the family, and still struggling with the structure and still struggling with how to run a routine with their children during lockdown. And this is particularly more tricky if you have children with special needs. So, for example, if your children have ADHD or autism, it can be quite a challenge to create that structure. And for children with special needs, creating a routine, creating a structure is really, really important, especially during this time. So I invited child behavior consultant Chelsea Angle with us to talk about creating a structure during quarantine with children with ADHD. So thank you very much for joining us, Chelsea, and warmest welcome to our community.
Thank you. It's
Well,
good to be here.
thank you so much. I know that this conversation is going to help so many parents, particularly for those parents who have children with special needs. So before we talk about that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and and what is it that you do?
Okay, well, my name is Chelsea Engel. I worked for years in the clinical setting. I have my BA in psychology. Um, and I've recently started doing consulting and coaching. And the reason why I started doing that is because after years of working in the clinical setting, I've seen so many parents now online that are in quarantine that are just totally frustrated trying to get the schedule down, trying to keep up with the homeschool and all of those other demands. A lot of them are trying to work from home and trying to raise their special needs child. And so I saw that there was a great need for that. A little bit of my own personal story too. I'll tell you why I'm so passionate about this and so passionate about helping. I actually myself, I suffer from ADHD. I also have auditory processing disorder. I was not diagnosed with APD until I was 14 years old. I was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was 20. So if you can
Wow.
imagine, yeah, going all those years, and I grew up in a very small, underprivileged country school. So if you can imagine all of those years not knowing what was wrong with me and feeling so different and so left out and like, why can't I just catch on like everyone else? So I completely empathize with your children and with many of you too, because I know many parents also have these issues. So long story short, I graduated from high school barely. I was a C, D, F student, depending on the subject, unmedicated, did not know what was going on. And so I barely graduated high school. I went to community college. I failed some classes. I passed some classes. I ended up getting meds and all of that difficult stuff to try to
Mm.
work out with the
Because you
medication.
actually
And
don't know what's going on.
no, you don't. It's so difficult. And, this is why it's my life's calling. I tell people. Um, so finally, after 8 years of taking classes, and sometimes I would take one class at a time, sometimes I would fail a class and have to take it over again. After 8 years of college, I finally graduated. And right now I'm working on my master's degree. So it is
That's
possible.
wonderful. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I'm a psychologist myself, and certainly for adults who haven't been diagnosed or have been diagnosed later in life, you have these stories where their childhood is a little bit of a struggle. They don't really understand what's going on. And so from your experience, what was that like as a child? What's going on inside your head? How did you experience that for yourself?
I thought I was stupid, to be honest. I would I was an avid reader. I love philosophical conversations. I love really deep thinking. That's why I like psychology so much. But on paper, my grades were just awful. And I could not focus. I could not sit still. I thought that something was really it wasn't I never thought I had a disorder per se. I thought that there was some kind of huge character flaw with me. And also I grew up in a very traditional style school. We did not have a lot of accommodations. We did not have very much of a special education
Mm.
program. You know, it's either the kiddos who were really struggling, you know, it's either like you really have a disability where it's like, you know, severe dyslexia or some form of severe learning disability, or you're just mainstream. There's not a lot of in between. And so when a child is tested for a high IQ, like I had, there was not a lot of in between for us, and nobody really knew what to do with me, honestly.
Mm.
So for me, it was very difficult. I had very low self esteem. I would try to be like everybody else, but realize that I was definitely
Couldn't
not
really
like that.
fit.
Could not fit in anywhere. And
Yeah.
that's why, you know, this is my life's work. Like I said, I don't want any child to ever have to go through what I went through.
Yeah, it
And
would be quite a that it's an advocacy, and that's why you actually fit in really well in our community. You know, our community is called Living with Purpose because you've actually identified this as your purpose, and you're pursuing, you know, action. You're putting in energy to pursue this particular purpose. You know, this is your life's calling. But for those viewers who actually don't have any idea of what ADHD is, you know, what are its symptoms, what are the characteristics to watch out for? Could you share with us some of the things to look out for?
yeah, so one of the trademarks is that inattentiveness, just not being able to follow through on tasks. I still struggle with it as an adult. Not that lack of follow through, like why, you know, one of the questions that's been posed to me is, you know, why can't my child just
Focus.
practice focus? Yeah, why can't they just focus? Why can't they just practice this instrument every night for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever? Why can't they just sit still and do their homework? Why can, you know, I see all these other kiddos who are getting all their homework done, and then they have all this time in the evening to go play or watch television or whatever. My kiddo was sitting at the kitchen table for hours on end and trying and trying and trying and not getting anywhere. So that's definitely that lack of attention, that lack of executive functioning, that organization. So, like, and I keep going back to my own personal struggle because I know that better than anybody
Mm.
else's. But I know a lot of people can relate to this. You know, that routine, trying to set goals for the day, trying to time block. A lot of us are time blind too. There's that saying, you know, if you're not early, you're late. And a lot of us, we really lack that punctuality. Yeah. And so, so yeah, that lack of executive functioning, also being able to organize things in space,
Mm.
you know, just remembering where I put my keys or where things belong, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so for some parents, this can be quite frustrating, and it's gonna be a vicious cycle almost because the parents are getting frustrated that the child couldn't focus, or you know that the child is just appears to lack that engagement and that can't you just sit still? Can't you just get this done? Can't you be organized? But the child isn't that, you know, and the frustration is with the parent, and the child is also getting frustrated, just getting confused, and it can be a vicious cycle in that respect.
Yes, absolutely. It takes such a toll on one's self-esteem because when they're being set up for failure, when they're being told you need to do this and only this, and there are no alternatives, that is setting them up for failure. And that's when we start to see this really low self-esteem. I know a lot of these kiddos, when they start to hit their teens and young adulthood, we see a lot of substance abuse issues. We see issues with depression, anxiety, and so forth. Because they have not been set up for success properly. And it's not that there's anything wrong with them per se. Like see, my goal of my company is to create a more accepting world that can
Mm,
accommodate our kiddos and bring out those gifts that they actually have, which a lot of times are far greater than any weakness that they have. Um, so we get this mindset sometimes that there's something wrong with them, and
mm,
I don't agree with that. I think with this attention deficit, there are so many gifts that come along with
mm.
that. So we need to start really focusing on those strengths and really trying to harness that in a way that can create a more positive life for our kiddos going forward. And as they grow up, they can contribute more to the world.
I think the more we talk about these things, the more awareness that we can raise about ADHD and all other special needs. It's going to be more diverse, in terms of what characteristics children could present. I know for sure that there are some companies who are embracing diversity, not just in terms of the usual diversity in terms of race, in terms of gender or socioeconomic status, but also diversity in terms of the cognitive or character traits. So it also recognizes that, okay, some people have dyslexia, some people have ADHD. There's no one set way to do things. And when you embrace that the fact that people are different, and some people might have special needs, then it becomes a more accommodating, it becomes easier to recognize that one size does not fit all the time. And
Yeah.
if this can be, if we can start this at an early age, starting at home or at the school environment or what have you, it just makes it so much easier for everyone. So Chelsea, now that we are in lockdown and there are so many parents who are, even for those parents who don't have children with special needs, they're struggling to find structure or routine. How do you set up a structure during quarantine with your children at this time?
Well, I think a very important thing to do would be create a list. They need visual prompts. We need visual prompts. Um, just saying, go clean your room, just go do it. That doesn't work with most of us that have ADHD. Most of and special needs kiddos, that lack that executive functioning in general, it's very difficult. So creating that kind of that list, create a chore chart with check marks. So every time they go and check that thing off, they can feel that sense of accomplishment. Allow them to check it off too. Don't check it off for them. Allow them to. Um, that is a big thing. And then also creating that reward system. So when they accomplish that task, then what is it that you're going to give them and as a reward? What is their favorite thing? Is it ice cream? Whatever it is. Make sure that that is something that they really would work for, though. Uh, and another thing too is that timer system. I cannot emphasize how important that is enough. Just setting a timer. Most of us, like, we cannot just focus for 30 minutes on cleaning our room. We'll get distracted, like, oh, the TV's on, the cat's running in, whatever. We get distracted easily. So
Mm,
setting that timer, 10 minutes now. I want you to go in your room for 10 minutes and clean for 10 minutes, and that's it. And then once that 10-minute timer is up, give them a break, say 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You can always tweak it for your child, for their age level, that kind of thing. Give them a break. Allow them to go watch television or just chill out, go outside and play, whatever.
mm,
And then set that timer. After that timer goes off, set it for another 10 minutes. Go back in the room, clean, and so forth. So then suddenly you have a system, you have that routine down, you have that pattern that they start to follow. It may be difficult at first. You may
mm,
be met with a lot of defiance, eye rolls, attitude, whatever. Just ignore that behavior. Remind them of what they're working for. and make sure that they stay in that room and they do not come out until that 10 minutes is up.
So
And
having those a very clear time period, and having a timer, so it's very specific. This is the only thing that you're doing during those 10 minutes, so you don't need to get distracted by anything else because it's such a short time span.
yes, yes, absolutely. And and a lot of times, kiddos, whenever they've fallen so out of routine and so out of pattern, you'll be met with a lot of resistance. I can almost guarantee that. But keep trying. Do not give up on them. 10 minutes. That's all I need from you, kiddo, is 10 minutes in this room, and then you can have your break and then back in for 10 minutes. It may take you all day the first time. That's
Mm,
fine. That is okay because eventually you're going to get that pattern down with them. So it's almost like the routine is running itself. They know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, they know exactly what's expected of them.
mm,
And I mean, I just use as an example cleaning your room, but it can be dishes, it can be laundry, it can be schoolwork even.
mm. So
Um,
just setting those, would you recommend to organize and talk about the routine, setting up the routine together, so it doesn't feel so authoritarian, that you're just giving the routine to the children?
um, a big thing too is that pairing aspect. So when I say pairing, I mean making it fun. They can pair that thing that they're doing, that task, which may normally be aversive, with something that's really fun. Put on some good music that they enjoy.
Mm,
And don't complain. Like no negativity in regards to this because they're already thinking in a negative way about it a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times they are. So keep it fun, keep it positive. Hey, let's get this done, it'll look so great when it's done, guys, or something like that. Another thing too is praise, that behavior specific praise that we use. um, oh, the room looks so great, you're doing such a good job at mopping, you're doing so good at the dishes, you're paying attention so well. That kind of thing, that praise, 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 praise. And a lot of times with kiddos who have these special needs, they need that more so than anybody else. They need that constant affirmation that what they're doing is right. And when they're not doing something right, then bring them back to that place where they are doing that thing again. Bring them back to that by, for one, ignoring that behavior, that maladaptive behavior, and then also bring them back to it, remind them of what they're working for.
mm.
And if they get so overwhelmed, if they get super anxious or overwhelmed, give them that time to just de escalate, create a calm, peaceful, harmonious environment so they can finish their tasks.
Right. So it actually does need. I'm sure it's probably easier said than done, because for some parents who do get frustrated, to have that calm, peaceful environment might be a bit of a challenge. So probably parents also need to monitor how they are responding. The parents also need to monitor how they are reinforcing the positive behavior, and how they are also responding to unwanted behavior, and how to encourage their children um, to modify it, to because if they are trying to achieve a common goal of, let's say, having a harmonious household or whatever it is, so maybe the goal is to finish homework, or maybe to help sort out the dishes or whatever. Just having a really clear end goal, showing the child that they're taking some steps and reinforcing those little steps, acknowledging the little steps that are being taken, would be something useful for the parents as well. But certainly the parents will need to monitor their own behavior, their own response, because the way they respond could affect the child as well. What do you say about that, Chelsea?
Absolutely. A lot of times, journaling, mindfulness, yoga, those kind of things, meditation, find your niche. Maybe it's running, or find that me time in the mornings or in the afternoon, whenever whenever you're most comfortable doing that. But you have to take time out for yourself without the kiddos. If you can just get away for 10, 20, 30 minutes and just have somebody keep an eye on them while you get time out to yourself, that is so important too. And also remind yourself of the good things that your child has, like the good gifts that they have, the things that they have to contribute. Um, that's a very important thing as well. And if you start to feel that negative talk in your mind about them, if you start to think to yourself, they're never going to do A, B, and C, or I cannot get these kids to do blah, blah, blah. We've all heard parents say that, and we've probably been told that growing up. But those are those comments are not helpful at all. And so, even if you're thinking it in your mind, really try to monitor that, hone in on it, find out why you are feeling the way you are. And it may not even have anything to do with the child.
Mm,
Sometimes there's
yeah.
a lot of work on the parents, and,
The internal
exactly.
struggle.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. There's so many different moving parts that go into creating a family dynamic, and just having a special needs child just compounds that. It creates an additional hardship, but it can also be overcome.
Yes,
And a
certainly.
lot,
And yeah, I have to say for parents who feel overwhelmed, and for those parents who are feeling a bit frustrated and not really know what else to do, that's when coaches and consultants like yourself could actually help, because you are not so immersed in that environment that you can see it from a different perspective. You're coming in from the perspective of an observer, and you can see the dynamic in the home. You can see how the children are responding, and then how the parents are also responding. You can see the dynamic. So sometimes for parents, because they are so immersed in this whole process, that they couldn't really see the big picture, they couldn't really see the options of how to respond, or maybe they couldn't even recognize some of the beliefs that they are holding about themselves, about their home, and about their children, that it could take an external person, whether it is a coach, a consultant, or even just a friend, who can give that other another perspective to what's going on in the home.
absolutely, for sure. And, when parents have children, a lot of times they're having their own childhood trauma that they're dragging into this new relationship that they're forming with their own children. And that creates quite a burden on the relationship. So sometimes, therapy, counseling, that kind of thing, seeking that type of professional help might also be necessary. Um, so yeah, definitely. And when you're outside of the home, because I've been in a lot of homes and I've helped a lot of people with their special needs kiddos, when you walk into a new situation, it's easy to judge. It's easy to create opinions or and this and that. But the fact is, none of us are living it day to day like the families are, like the parents, like the children are, and the siblings. And so sometimes it's just nice to have that outside perspective, that non-judgy kind of objective look inside of another person's
Objective but
life,
compassionate,
but
having, yes,
compassionate. Yes,
yes.
absolutely. And creating concrete tools that can help them, that can create a better life for them, for a more, like I say, peaceful, more harmonious life for them, but using tools that can do that.
That's right. There are systems that you can use, just as you've said, in psychology, we know about reinforcement, we know about, rewards, we know about, the importance of having a routine, preparing the environment, having that structure. Because I don't know if you're Skinnerian, because I certainly am
Yeah.
Skinnerian in my background. So it's really the environment, it's the the rewards, and reinforcement of wanted behavior, and modification of unwanted behavior, however you want to modify it. But certainly a structure is really important, and having that system, practical things that they can apply at home. And to begin with, as we've talked about today, having a timer, it's so simple. Just having that 10-minute focused time to do something, have a break, and then try again after 10 minutes. That's really practical, that's very concrete, and that's something that they could immediately apply simply, without complications.
Yeah, absolutely. The timer thing for me personally has been a godsend. I didn't discover it until I was older. Actually, I learned it when I was working with my kiddos in the clinic, and I was like, "Oh, I should try this for myself." And I started doing it, and it's really helped me a lot, especially in graduate school. And instead of looking at this gigantic mound of work that needs to be done and getting overwhelmed, like those of us that have really poor executive functioning do, I can break it down. I like to do 20-minute increments for myself personally. I find most of my kiddos 10 minutes is a good number, but like I said, you can always tweak it for
Yeah,
each
depending on
individual.
yeah, you can always tailor it. And I mean, for my other business, because I'm also a self-publishing coach, I've seen this work in with aspiring authors, that they get overwhelmed when I tell them write a book. It's like, write a book, it's too much. But when you actually break it down into chunks, and have like just an hour, okay, 1 hour might be too much for some people, but 30 minutes or 10 minutes just doing this, when you break it down into these chunks of time that's manageable for the person, then it becomes easier, because it's not this gigantic thing that you need to do, but it's just all these little bits in this short period of time, and then you take it one step after another.
Yes, for sure. It really does just, breaking it down, those small little increments. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And we have trouble, like, most of us see like the entire elephant and we're like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it definitely helps for sure.
Wonderful. Well, Chelsea, thank you very much for joining us today. If people would like to connect with you, where can they find you?
Okay, so we are still in our research and development phase, but you can go to my Facebook page. It's called Exceptional Parents, Awesome Kids.
Wow.
And yes, and that's who I love to work with. And everyone I've met is like that. So you can go there, message me. I would be happy to speak with you, and maybe we can set up a coaching or a consultation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Chelsea, and thank you everyone who's listening to this conversation. If you've stayed till the end of this conversation, I do hope that it served you, whether you have a child with special needs, or maybe you're just an overwhelmed person yourself. Having some structure, and having my takeaway message for today is really that timer thing. That could actually be a game changer for so many of these kids, and maybe for yourself as well. Just having these really focused short bites of time, if you like, to get things done, having that structure, having that routine, and putting in a reward system as well, to reinforce the positive behavior, to recognize the good things that's going on, and you can cultivate that, and grow that. And the more positivity that you nurture, the better it will be. So thank you very much, Chelsea. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll catch up again next time for another purposeful conversations with me, Emmy, here in the Pami Code Facebook group. Until then, take care, and bye for now. Bye.